Okay, so another thing that is very, very heavy, especially when we're living in a world where a lot of people are trading, you have Forex, all those type of things, you want to go ahead and keep this in mind. If you're filing jointly, you get $3,000 as far as your capital gain deduction. However, if you go to married filing separate, it's only $1,500. So that's going to cut that down in half. There are some other benefits that you will lose and some credits that you may not be able to get the full amount for if you're filing separately. But again, you have to weigh your pros and cons, okay? That's why I'm giving you this information so you can have this conversation with whoever is doing your taxes and you can say, hey, these are the pros, these are the cons. Can you walk me through this? Can you help me? Okay, because if you are, again, separating and your spouse has a liability of over $200,000, do you really want to be attached to that? That's something you need to think of. Here's another thing to think of, guys. You can actually file head of household. It is for this reason. Now, here's the exception that I was talking to you guys about in the beginning of the video. All right. If you are married, but you have lived apart from your spouse for more than 6 months out of the year, okay? And you are paying more than half of the household bills, you can file head of household. One of you can. Some of you might be asking, okay, so what type of scenario would call for that? If you have a spouse and that spouse is maybe living outside of your home for whatever reason, maybe that's just your prerogative, or maybe your spouse works in another area, you have another home, so your spouse, it's more convenient for your household for your spouse to stay there for more than 6 months out of the year. Then one of you is able to go ahead and claim head of household. The other one would obviously have to file single. This happens a lot more than you would probably think, okay? There's a lot of families that do not live together all year around. What I'm trying to get you to understand is that, again, you can legally do this. You just need to know the rules on how to do it. And if this works for you and you can make this work for you throughout the year, well, then go ahead and make sure you are talking to your tax professional about these things. Hey, is it beneficial for one of us to claim head of household as opposed to married filing jointly or married filing separate? Because, hey, my husband or my wife does live outside of this home for more than 6 months out of the year. And they are paying more than 50% of the bills. Now let's talk about qualifying widower. If your spouse has passed and in the same year that your spouse has passed, you have not remarried, you can still claim or file married filing jointly so that you can still get those benefits that we addressed earlier on in this video. Now, for 2 consecutive years after that, you can then turn to filing qualifying widower. So if you do that, you're going to receive an increase in your standard deduction. So for married filing jointly and qualifying widower, you're going to receive an $1,800 increase in your standard deduction. And then for head of household, you're going to receive a $1,400 increase. And then for single, you're going to receive a $900 increase in your standard deduction. Okay, so that's very important. If your spouse has passed away, again, you want to be speaking to your CPA, your tax professional, your tax strategist, whomever is handling your taxes about these different changes in your house, because again, there's going to be some changes on how you file your status, which is then going to be some changes in what your final outcome is for your tax returns. Okay, so again, if you're filing, if you need to do the qualifying widower, you will receive an increase in your standard deduction. And if you're not familiar with standard deduction, we have used that word quite a bit in this video. So if every time we've used this word you're not really familiar with it, or you don't know how that affects your tax refund or your tax return or the amount that you owe, whatever it is, make sure that you are checking out that video down below. We have addressed standard deductions and how it affects your tax return. And while you are cooking your turkey and this other stuff, make sure you are putting your potatoes or your cauliflower in a pot so that it can be boiling. Let's go ahead and just check on these vegetables. It has it smelling so good in here. You can kind of just smell and already taste all of these flavors. Okay. All right, we're gonna let that sit for a little bit longer, maybe about 5 minutes. And then we're going to add in our cream of soup. Now, if you really want to make this from scratch, you can just go ahead and add in some heavy cream as well as some flour. But if you want to be a little bit lazy, then you can go ahead and just get the soups, and it will do what it does. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and add in our soup. That is the cream of chicken. And now we're going to do the cream of celery. I know that looks crazy right now, but I promise you it's going to really look good in a second. Okay, so let's go ahead and mix this through. We're going to mix this all the way through. All right, now here's another thing that you want to do. Okay, there's going to be some leftover soup in that can. You want to just add some water to it, shake it up a bit. All right, so now you want to just kind of add some water to this. What that is going to do is it's going to loosen up that soup, okay? And it's going to get that leftover soup that's stuck in the can. All right, and if this gets a little watery, that is okay, because when you put it in the oven, it's going to thicken up again. And you want to stretch this depending on how much you're making and how big your pan is. You may want to get 2 cans of each. Okay, because I always tell you guys, start off small and then build up. Don't start off big, because once you do that, you can't pull it back, right? So if we over season, we can't then take it off. We can always under season and add though. All right, do you see how good this is turning out? Look how good this looks. And this is the consistency. I think I'm going to add a little bit more water because it needs to cover my turkey wings at least halfway, because you're going to be, you know, putting it in the oven for about 30 minutes and then you're going to flip it over. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and work on our cauliflower, mashed cauliflower, or mashed potatoes. Again, you will make this exactly the same. Just use potatoes if you're using potatoes, or if you want to use sweet potatoes, that's fine. Or if you want to use cauliflower, that is fine as well. It is all going to be the same recipe. And add our butter, okay? And we're gonna go ahead and start mashing. Now, cauliflower is a great substitute. It's the same consistency. Okay. The only thing different is you do not have to add milk to this if you do not want to. With your mashed potatoes, you're definitely going to add milk. Add in your seasoning, which is just a little bit of pepper, a little bit of salt. That's it. And add in our avocado. Taste it already. Go ahead and add in our cheese. Just depending on what type of cheese you like. Okay, I always use some white American cheese and a little bit of pepper jack. Okay, so now this is completely done, guys. This is gonna look so good. All we're doing is turning it over so you can see how tender it is. Look at how it's practically just falling off of the bone. Now, this is how you want your turkey wings to be. This one is a little bit harder to turn over because it's a little bit bigger. Look at how that just fell off the bone. Okay, look at how tender that is. Okay, and then look at the gravy. So we're going to go ahead and plate this. So good. Bon appetit. All right, right, guys, thank you so much for joining another episode of Taxes and Dinner and Taxes, where we like to say we want to feed your soul with these recipes, but we also want to feed your bank with these tax tips that we go over weekly. So this is not designed to have you just going out there and thinking you're a professional to start doing your own taxes. It's not designed to take the place of a tax attorney or a CPA, because I am not that. What it is designed to do is to educate you so you can start having these conversations freely with whomever is doing your taxes, so you can start asking questions and just be informed, better informed, so that you can have a better tax year next year. Okay, so today we're going to be making smothered turkey wings and cheesy avocado mashed potatoes. I am not eating potatoes this month, so I'm going to go ahead and substitute those potatoes with cauliflower. You are more than welcome to do so. So let's go ahead and jump right into it, okay? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put on these gloves because I don't want to mess up my pretty white nails with all of these seasonings that we're going to go ahead and put on our turkey. Now remember, I told you what you guys are going to need. You do need onions, you do need garlic, you do need celery. If you'd like, you need tomatoes, not necessarily. You also need cream of chicken, cream of celery. I use the Campbell soup, which is really, really good. Okay, you also are going to need, I use Slap Your Mama, which is really good as well. And you need some adobo, you need some pepper, you need some Szechuan seasoning, you need some garlic powder, and whatever else you like. You know, I always suggest mixing a lot of seasonings together and just tasting it so you can see, hey, I like this flavor. It may have too much of this. Don't just go throwing it, separately on your meat of whatever you're putting together, because you may not like the way it tastes, and then by the time it's already on there, it's too late. There's nothing you can do. So that is just a little tip. So now I want you guys to look at everything that I've cut up. I've already done it this way. When you guys are doing it, I can take my time to talk to you guys about taxes, and then we'll catch up and throw everything together at the end. Cut it in 3 slits, and then this way when you just chop it, it already gets thin, and you don't have to take all of that time cutting. So it's very simple to do it this way. All right, you can do your onions the same way, same concept. So now you guys can see what I have already cut up, and this is what I want you guys to do while I go ahead and talk your ears off about taxes. This is the celery, here is the garlic, and here are the onions that you're gonna need. Okay, so you want it this size. Be generous with your seasonings, okay? Turkey has a tendency to be very dry if you're not cooking it right, and it has the tendency to be very bland in taste. So you want to make sure that not only are you rubbing the seasoning into the meat, but again, that you are very generous about the seasoning, okay? All right, so that is what it should look like. I'm gonna go ahead and get another piece here because I want to show you guys something. And again, you're gonna just rub it in, rub it in, rub it in, rub it in, and be nice to it, okay? It tends to come out better when you are actually, present with what you're doing, okay? So rub that in. Now, here's what you want to do, because when you put this in your skillet, what's going to happen is when it fries, the wing is going to turn all different types of ways. Okay, so just to avoid that, okay, you just want to take this wing part. I don't like the way it was so light. Okay, so we're just going to add some more seasoning. Looks better to me, but I like for the skin to be flavored too. Okay, so if you fry it on both sides, you don't have to fry it hard, just enough for the skin to be cooked through and brown. This way, when you put it in the sauce that we're gonna make, the seasoning does not come off. We're gonna put that wing part and fry that on this side first. Depending on how big your pot is, you go ahead and do 2. But you don't want your pan to be crowded, because then it doesn't cook evenly. So we're just gonna let that fry, and then we'll be back to turn this over. Okay, so while we're doing that, I'm going to allow you guys to go ahead and cut up your vegetables so that we can start working on the gravy, which I have already cut up. So now it is tax tip time. Today, one of the things we're going to quickly go over, because I think it is very important, is going to be filing statuses. Okay, so I have a lot of people who come into my office, and I will ask them, what are they filing? What status are they filing? Is it head of household? Is it married filing joint? Married filing separately? Single? What is it? And a lot of times people will say, no, I'm head of household, because they're assuming like they are the head of their household, even if it is just them, that they can file head of household. And unfortunately, that is not true. Or I will get somebody who might be in a relationship, and I will ask them, hey, are you filing single? What is the status? And they might say, well, no, I'm not single. It's not single. Okay, so I wanted to break this down. For some of you, you may already know this, but I'm sitting behind the seat. I know that a lot of people do not know this already, okay? So when your tax professional, your CPA, whomever, is asking you, what are you filing? When they are saying head of household, that means that you have more than one person in your household and you are responsible for those people in your household. Okay, so now let's jump right into head of household. Head of household is pretty simple. Do you have other people in the household that you're taking care of? Are you the, main person taking care of the bills? Are you paying more than 50% of the bills? The utilities. If it is you, then you can go ahead and file head of household, okay? Head of household you cannot do if it is solely you. You don't have anyone else in the house. You don't have any children. You don't have a cousin, sister, brother. You don't have your mom, your in-laws living with you. None of that is going on. It is just you. So therefore, you cannot claim head of household. Now, married filing joint. Now, clearly, if you are married, you should be filing together. There are some exceptions to the rule, which I will go over later. But just keep in mind, when you jump to married filing separate, your tax brackets, your tax benefits are not going to be as favorable as someone who is filing married filing joint. So you really want to look at that. If you're wanting to see, okay, which one is going to be better, then make sure you have your tax professional, have this discussion with your CPA or your tax professional. Let them give you both numbers. If you have too much income, because again, when you're filing jointly, that adjusted gross income or the total taxable income is going to be combined together. So naturally, you are going to have a higher amount. So sometimes you may not be able to write off medical expenses. And this is for somebody who has, $75,000, a very, very high amount of medical bills. You may want to talk to your tax professional or your CPA or whoever and ask them, hey, is it beneficial? Am I able to file married filing separate? And if I am able to file married filing separately, how does this affect how much I can write off for medical bills? If you only have $500, $2,000 of medical bills, you really don't want to do that, because next we're going to go over what you actually lose when you're filing married filing separately. So what things you will lose if you go to married filing separately as opposed to married filing jointly. Now, first of all, your standard deductions are going to decrease heavily, substantially. Okay, so for 2023, if you filed married filing jointly, you received a standard deduction of around $27,000. However, if you filed married filing separate, you received a standard deduction of $13,850. Now for 2024, I'm going to go ahead and give you this update because we are in 2024. We should not just be looking back to 2023. We need to stay on top of things for 2024 as well. So that has gone up just a little bit. I want to say the standard deduction for married filing jointly is going to be $29,200, and then if you go to married filing separate, it goes down to $14,600. So there in itself, you can see where you lose a lot of your tax benefits with just filing married filing separate as opposed to married filing jointly. Another thing is your contribution amount, your IRA contribution is going to decrease substantially as well.